Hey everybody, Bonehead from the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Blood Bowl Formations Elven Union setup. So we're having a look at every team in Blood Bowl 2020, whether it's from the rulebook, the Teams of Legend PDF, or the expanded NAF teams, Slan and Khorne, and we're looking at how you set up for kickoffs. Whether you're kicking or receiving, we're going to look at some of the best places to put your players and why. So if you are planning on running Elven Union, which you should in this edition because they got pretty spicy, I think, or playing against them soon, this video will give you some ideas on how best to play and play around them. So when it comes to running Elven Union, you've got a couple of things to bear in mind. One, you're Edge 2+ everywhere. So no matter who starts the turn in base contact, you are pretty good odds to be able to escape them if you need to. The second thing to be aware of is if that goes wrong, or if someone punches you before you get a chance to move away, your armor is really low. You've only got two players on this team, the Blitzers, who've got armor, 9+, everybody else is armor 8+, so they are pretty vulnerable and everybody is strength 3. Those two players are the only two players that end up with block as well, so when it comes to dishing it out, the team's not bad. When it comes to taking it, the team is vulnerable. So league play, be prepared to have a few journeymen. Now the great thing about this edition is that you now get an extra 10k for every touchdown you score, and Elven Union are going to be scoring some touchdowns. So if you're playing League with these guys, don't worry if too many of them die, you will still be getting more cash than you used to in 2016. So if that put you off Elves before, don't let that put you off now. So when it comes to playing defense with Elves, you've got a couple of really strong pieces here. So the Blitzers, oh, that's yellow, we don't want yellow, we want red, come on, there we go. You've got these two Blitzers. Now these Blitzers are movement 7, edge 2+, armor 9+, block and sidestep. So these guys are going to be brilliant for counterplay, because if you tag the side of a cage and they punch you and you don't go down, you get to swivel around and end up next to their ball carrier. It also means you can protect the edges really well when you need to. They're just really good players, and eventually 2 touchdowns is going to get you the dodge skill for them as well. Then they become blodge step, and that's probably only slightly less annoying a player to play against than a war dancer, maybe actually more annoying. Anyway, when it comes to defense with Elves, you don't want to put your positionals on the line. You've got catchers who are movement 8 gods, strength 3, edge 2+, they come with catch. They will get dodge real quick or block. You've got a thrower who is one of the best throwers in the game, and really need to put that on a t-shirt. And then you've got the linemen. So the linemen are individually quite fine. Okay, they're movement 6, they're armor 8+, they're okay. They are by themselves a very good team. Now when they're backed up with this positional team here, they're pretty strong. So on defense, the best thing to do when it comes to Elves, if you're playing against a team that is likely to be punching your lights out or wanting to try, is just accept the fact that your linemen are going to go on the line and do what good linemen do and get punched in the face. But as soon as you activate, you are able to start dodging them away. Now the reason you kind of want to put linemen on the line early on is you don't want to risk your blockers. You don't want to risk your movement 8 catchers. Even when they start getting dodge skills and things like that, you don't want to put them on the line because they can daisy chain those blocks along, and it's going to end up with some very expensive positionals in very expensive positions, i.e. in bits and pieces in your sideline. So anchor defense here, we've looked at it a bunch of different times now. It's such a solid Blood Bowl formation. You give up 3 linemen there and hope they don't get punched too hard. It might be okay, it might not be okay, depends on the team you're playing against. But the key bit here is that your positionals, the guys who make this team really explosive and really special, are protected. If your opponent wants to blitz them, they're going to have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's going to be a 1-die block on that guy there for 7. So they're going to have to go quite a long way around. What's more likely to happen is wipe out the line. Okay, good thing is most of them aren't going to die. They'll be able to jump up and jump away next turn when it suits you, and then potentially 1 blitz on a lineman, whether it's a center lineman because they've wiped your line out, or an edge lineman. What's going to happen there is if they follow up, they're going to end up in base contact with a blitzer if they take that choice. That's not bad. That is simply 1 lineman move up and probably a 2-die block against the foe. Now, when you're elves, you don't get a lot of opportunities to make a lot of blocks. So we'll look at this when we look at the offense, but anytime you get given basically a free 2-die block, when you've got the block advantage, it's really beneficial to take. So if they come in here and knock this lineman down, if the lineman's okay, if the lineman's not okay, one of these guys is going to be able to jump up and give you a really profitable 2-die block. But let's ignore that. If they break out here and start side caging, you've got a blitzer, you've got some catchers, you've just got a massive and very good contingent to flex either way. And what you want to do with elves is kind of flood through. You want to survive and then choose a corner, choose an angle, move your team around, start building a bit of a screen. Your opponent's instinctively going to go the other way. Then you can mob them with elves, tag the corners of their cage, put those blockers on there, blitz in, stand next to the ball carrier. With some supports, they'll get 1-die blocked, passed around inside the cage. If they survive, you will start with 1-die block on the ball carrier in the cage to knock them into your foes, into your friends, and then you should be able to get 2 or 3 1- or 2-die blocks on the ball carrier on the following turn if you survive. It is an expensive way to play, but it's the best thing to do. Now, the anchor defense keeps your key players safe and keeps them flexible. But I really like this for elves because it gives you the most flexibility and it keeps you kind of closer as well. So the Chevron defense, we've seen this one before. Again, the same premise is true. Now this one's really good against fast teams, so middle to fast teams. It prevents any clean breakthrough situations. So there's a couple of cunning things here. The first is if you've got your blitzers on the edge, there is a chance that they're going to mark this dude, come in here and 2-die block your blitzer. If they do that, this guy's tackle zone's still in effect and they've got a guy here, so they're not going to be going through here without dodging. That's a good thing. The other beautiful thing here is that this guy has got sidestep. So where they'd normally knock him down up here and clear him out, you get to sidestep in a position that you want to. If they don't take him down, you can jump there, you can jump there, you can just move back 1 square, and if you don't go down to the ground, you've got a really solid tackle zone overlap there as well. And even if you do go to the ground, you can choose where to go to cause and to force your opponent to get more blocks. So if you go there, they're going to have to come through here and they're going to really struggle to not take an unnecessary and potentially harmful amount of dodges. Now that's assuming that they want to apply that strength to a side cage breakout. Now they're going to do that. They're going to apply those 2 dice. If those 2 dice end up as 2 pushes, fantastic, and you end up in a good position where the road is closed. If they do break the road open, you've got 2 movement 8 catchers here in the center that are very able to swoop in, and because they're strength 3 and have movement 8, they're going to be able to move exactly where you want to be, put a dude on, bring the other guy up. It's going to be a 2-die block. If one of your blitzers can't reach it, then it's going to be a 2-die block up without block. However, it's still a 2-die block, and that is just fine when it comes to elves. Eventually, those guys are going to become blodgers as well. Now, this team over time just turns into a filthy fast blodging team. These guys 1 skill away from being blodging. These guys 2 skills away from being movement 8 blodging. The team just gets really strong, and this is basically the starting lineup: 2 catchers, a thrower, some linemen. Now, the other thing to mention on this one is there is a running lane right down the middle. So if they clear out these guys, they are going to be able to run down. But if they do that, catcher, blitzer, blitz, catcher, blitzer, blitz. You've got a really solid contingent in the backfield, and they will have to mark all of these players if they wish to do that and break through. Okay, so what's that? 1, 2, I suppose they could mark 1, 2, 3, 4 players there. 5 players to clear the line off. It's just going to be such an intensive, a labour-intensive way to break it through. I don't think it's going to happen. Now, the other great thing about this one is if it's a short kick, if you are left with an opportunity for a blitz, for a counter play, and this is where elves really start to play, if you are willing to pressure them, deploy 1 square closer. And when it comes to these blitzers, you can deploy them up here as well because they've got that blodge step. Even if they come at an angle, you're going to be able to bounce in the right direction. I don't recommend putting them on the line. Even though they have got block step, they are still likely to get punched to the ground, and sidestep is still useful when you're on the ground, but it's a lot more useful when you're not. So giving the opponent the opportunity to try and put you down is not the best tactic in the world. Vulnerability of the Chevron defense. Play it against a medium to light team. They can break through here, they can break through here, but you've got a good counter attack force there. But also, because you're movement 6 and HG+, if they fumble, if they stall, you've got a very quick angle here to break through. So don't be afraid to deploy 1 square closer. A quick snap's going to hurt you a little bit, and these guys are going to get extra blocks, but it will help bring you 1 step closer to breaking that serve. And a slight adjustment to the Chevron defense is the column defense. Now the elf column, elf stall is a very renowned tactic that we should probably cover on Theory Thursday actually. Do we want to do that yet? I've got wizards this week. Let's do wizards instead for this week. We'll do that one next week. So you can preset here. Now this is effective against several teams. It's effective against fast teams and it's effective against those teams that are going to cage up. When it comes to elves, the Chevron gives you slightly more coverage, especially down the centre. But this is pretty useful. If you just want to deploy and see where your opponent goes, whichever way they go, they cannot break through these without taking multiple dodges. This opening here will appear if they wipe out this line, which makes it pretty vulnerable for a quick breakout. But if they do that, there is no way to tag your players. There's no quick breakout. All they can do is blitz one guy and chuck him in there. So you will be left with a counter-attack force if you deploy like this. And it means that if they cage up and move down here, you are ready to go with your columns. And that can save you a bit of time. It doesn't really matter whether you run this one or the other one. There's very minimal sort of strength and defense bonuses in this situation. I run the Chevron more than I'd run the other one, but the column defense is going to end. It's going to be what you end up in if you're against dwarves, if you're up against mummies, if you're up against a team that is going to cage, you're going to end up in the column, so you might as well start there, I guess. But as good as elves are at breaking the serve, they are very, very good at serving away touchdowns themselves. So we've got a couple of very standard offenses here for elves. They just don't need a lot of support here. So the 5-4-1-1 is one we look at for quite a few teams. Now, because elves are mid to fast, okay, they've got a reasonable amount of strength. They've got a reasonable amount of speed. You don't have to budget for strength 2 players. You don't have that stunty element to work around. So what you've got here is a bunch of boosted human linemen. Traded an armor for an agility, essentially, and that gives you a really solid team. So 5-4-1-1, you've got the thrower in the backfield, you've got a lineman here. Between those two, they get a massive collection range, 3, 4, 5, 6, a massive collection range of the entire pitch, and because you've deployed them centrally here, anywhere the ball goes, this lineman will be able to get in front of, and the thrower can come and collect. Last thing, job done. Then it gives you 2 more elements here. I wish to have a different colour, thank you. You've got this line, and this line with 2 ends gives you a great opportunity to take multiple 2-die blocks. Now, we said this earlier, never give up an opportunity to take a multiple die block when you're an elf player, because it doesn't come up very often. And one thing you can do when it comes to this offense is you can see we've got the blitzer and the catcher lining the sidelines. Don't necessarily be too afraid to put a blitzer on the line as well to play tight end, or put them in the center. You are going to be making the opening move, so being able to leverage that block advantage can be useful. But what you're likely to want to do is move him to collect the ball. At the end of the turn, come in and probably collect it with the thrower. You're going to want to move this line in the opposite direction of wherever the ball lands, and then you're going to want to take a blitz, a strategic blitz somewhere to either create a bit of an opening or just to kind of start penning the team in. Now, the other thing you're going to want to do is dodge away after contact. So you will be surgically striking with this team. So that's what I mean. If you can start here farming some 2-die blocks away, 2-die block away, 2-die block away, blitz in, bounce back. If your fail case is this barrier of players here, wherever this ball is going to go is fine. And that is massive, okay? Your opponent is going to be able to blitz through you, and your opponent is going to start to bring their numbers to bear. But up against an elf team, what you're going to see is them deploy a little bit deeper. And the reason they're going to deploy so deep is because you are so fast. So what that does give you is 1 extra turn. So you can score in 2 turns with an elf team with very little difficulty. Can you score in 3 or 4 or 5 turns? Now, this offense here gives you a really solid defense. These guys can collect the ball. You've got 9 players here. You can just break down if you want to. You can push these guys away, leave your line, bring these guys back a bit if you want to, and you can slow it down for a turn. Because if you're playing against elves, if you're playing against orcs, a team that's slow, they're going to deploy their main players not here on the line, not there on stage 2, maybe starting here. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They aren't going to get any further than that onto your side of the pitch. That is at best, basically. So anything that's here is completely safe, and any way they any way they want to go to get there, they're going to have to go through players in this situation. So the 5-4-1-1 gives you the best starting position to just farm a turn away and allow your opponent to make the opening move on defense, which isn't normally thought a great idea, but you've got the numbers at this situation because they've had to deploy deep. You've got the agility advantage. You're going to be just playing the clock advantage. But if you don't have the clock advantage, then you can go heavy flank, and the elf team here is a superb team to do this in. This guy has got a cheeky PA of 2+, which that just gets a big green smiley face from me. So it's got a great collection range, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then a cheeky 3+ pass to whichever direction you want to go. Now, the goal here is to block away, follow up, create a little bit of a pocket there. Then you've got blitzer free, catcher free, lineman free. Now, I know they're only movement whatever 6, but Edge 2+ is going to give you a ton of range. So this guy collects here, this guy collects here, this guy collects here, and you will be able to farm the ball off to one of your scoring players. Whether you want to give it to a blitzer or a catcher is entirely up to you. I would recommend, if you've got 2 blitzers, running them as screen, because they are going to get punched and having block is going to help you. And the movement 8 on catcher is pretty tasty, and the quicker these guys get blocked, the quicker you have more flexibility with your play. Now, honestly, lineman's going to be fine too, because what you're going to do here is you're going to push away, move up, go for a blitz, create potentially a side cage or a screen up there to create a launch pad for your movement 8 or movement 7 Edge 2 player to be able to break through on the next turn with some support. So the heavy flank for elves is very easy to run, and if you're going to be playing against it, we don't normally go into this much detail. What do you do at this point? You've already deployed your team. You have to hope that you have deployed your team in such a way where you have got a reserve of players ready to bring enough numbers to crush their side cage. And then you on offense, assuming your role to pick up and pass the ball off goes okay, puts the pressure on the defense massively. They are the quintessential elf team. They've got a good passing game, they've got some serious speed, and they don't actually suffer on the strength. They do suffer on the defense when it comes to being able to take a punch, and what you're going to see from your Elf Union team is probably a starting roster of 11 or 12 players that's going to finish the game at about 7 or 8. But you can still score. You can still, using that agility and using that speed, bring your power to bear exactly where you need it to. They will have a tough matchup against heavy cages. Tomb Kings, Undead, Dwarves and Chaos are going to be a tough one. But because all of those teams are so slow, this team here has to break the serve one time to win the game. And that's all they're going to need to do. And with movement 6, 7, Edge 2+ everywhere, anytime that ball gets fumbled is going to cost your opponent several turns, and it's going to cost you as the elf player an opportunity. And that's all you need, is just to build a couple of opportunities. Don't roll ones and you will be off to the races. And Elven Union in this edition, I think, are very exciting. Anyway guys, thank you ever so much for watching. Let me know what you think of Elf Union in this edition, because I think they are pretty tasty. And we'll be back with some more Blood Bowl content soon. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the show even further, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Or come and join us in our Patreon, link below, where you get early access to our content and monthly competitions. See you later.